This video will give you a quick orientation to the tools in the map ribbon. So here I have a new empty project. There's nothing in it but the base map. And we see the base map both in the map window and here in the table of contents. And I've opened the map ribbon, and this has quite a few tools that are extremely useful. However, I don't think I'm going to go through them in order because there are some here that I don't use. Some are more important than others. Some are more advanced than others. So let's start with the most important area, this navigate section. Okay? And probably the most important button in the entire software is the Explore cursor. Now, if you just click on the big picture of Explore, you get this pointy finger, and that allows you to pan. Or if you hold your Shift key and drag a box, it allows you to zoom. But the Explore cursor actually can do a little bit more than that. I know everyone's always tempted to pull these drop downs. And so let me show you what the drop downs do. The drop down under the Explore cursor, one of the things you can do with the Explore cursor is query data that you have open in the map. We don't really have any right now, but information about that data will pop up in a pop-up. Now, sometimes that's really helpful. Sometimes you either want to look at, the layer that's on top or all of the layers that you have turned on. You want to get the data about them. Sometimes this will drive you crazy, and you find yourself clicking on the map and constantly getting pop-ups when you don't want them. If you don't want pop-ups, you can temporarily switch this to no pop-ups, or you can go back and turn pop-ups on the visible layers. So it's nice to know that those things are there under the Explore cursor. And by the way, you can read these details about how Explore cursor works with your mouse. I use a trackpad, and so probably the way I handle these things are a little bit different. Okay. So the Explore cursor. The Explore cursor helps you find your way around. And so do the other things in the Navigate neighborhood. The picture of the whole world zooms you out to what's called the full extent of your data. Well, if you have a base map open, the full extent of your data is the whole world. That's what to use when you get lost. The back arrow takes you back to the previous extent you were looking at. And you can, once you do that, you have a back and forward option. If we want to go back to seeing the whole world again, we can go forward. If we want to go to seeing, Atlantic Canada here, we can go backwards. So you can, move among views that you have used. If there's a view that you like, that you need, suppose you were doing some work on the North Atlantic, that was your study area. In fact, I'll even hold down the Shift key and drag a box, and I'll come even closer into a region of the North Atlantic, the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Well, if I needed this view and I was going to use it a lot, I could bookmark it. So you can add a new bookmark, and I could call it, that's not how you spell it though, Gulf of St. Lawrence. Do I spell it with a W or a U? W. Okay, and you can give it a description if you wish, my study area. And then if you do that, no matter where you go in the world, if I go back, out to the whole world, and then I zoom into the southern part of Africa, I can always come in here and click on that bookmark, and it'll take me to that location, which is kind of useful. I remember very early on when you're first starting to learn GIS, sometimes you can get lost trying to navigate around the world, and it's nice to have these tools that will take you back to where you want to be. We also have incremental zoom in and incremental zoom out. They kind of work just like you'd think. Zoom in, zoom out. Okay. These, however, are sometimes very useful if you have a different cursor active. So the Explore cursor is not the only cursor. There's a select cursor, there's an editing cursor, there's a georeferencing cursor. If you have a different cursor active and you don't feel like going back and activating the Explore cursor, sometimes it's helpful to just be able to incrementally zoom in and out like this. Go to XY is another great tool. When you click on this, you can put in any latitude and longitude you want. You can provide it in decimal degrees or degrees, minutes, and seconds. Or if you're using UTM or some other meter or feet based coordinate system, you can give it in those units. I'll use decimal degrees and I'll just have it take us to the 0, 0 point, the place where the equator crosses the prime meridian. And you can either use the hand and pan to that location, or you can flash a little light at that location, or you can put a pin there. The problem with the pin, we can put a pin there, that's fine, but the pin shows up as a graphics layer. It's not really data. It's just like a picture of a pin. But sometimes that's good. You just want to hold that location and know it's there. And you'll notice that that pin shows up as a graphics layer here in my table of contents. I'm going to remove it because I don't really want a pin there. So I can right click on graphics layer and click remove. And then I can close this, go to XY. And if I wish, I can go back to the North Atlantic or whatever. I actually use go to XY a lot when I'm trying to digitize new features. All right, the next important neighborhood here is the layer neighborhood, and that allows you to change the base map. So if you look at the base maps that are provided here, the nice Esri ones, you have to be logged in to use. You can have your own base maps. I, by accident over time, have wound up with a couple of base maps of my own here. I don't know why. But let's just go with the ones that everybody has that are provided through Esri. Let's go to the imagery base map. And that just changes the way the world looks. If I zoom out, the whole world now looks like satellite imagery. And if I go to my bookmark, you know, that can take me back to my study area and I can see a little bit more detail. And if I really want to, I can shift and draw a box and really zoom in here and see how good the resolution on that base map imagery is. It's pretty nice. And then of course I can, you know, zoom back out. One thing I like to do in conjunction with the base map, and I think I'll do this before I talk about the rest of this neighborhood, is also in the map ribbon, there are these locate binoculars. And again, you have to be logged in to use them. But if you click on the locate binoculars, you can search for any address or commonly recognized major feature in the world. I wonder if I can find Yale. Can it find Yale University? Yes, it can. Oh, look it. It can find the Yale University Art Gallery. All right, I'm going to do that. I'm going to have it take us to the Yale University Art Gallery. So it puts a letter here, and let's see how we did. Let's zoom down in. And it's actually not on a location that I would consider the art gallery. It looks to me like it's on, is that Branford College? I think the art gallery was actually the second choice in the list there. Let me try that again. Let's try 1111 Chapel Street. That looks like the Yale University Art Gallery. I mean, that's kind of fun. You can come in here and zoom all the way down to a single location that you're familiar with, and you can see how good the resolution and locating features are. Okay, so that's just fun. Let me close the locate tool, and we'll zoom back out to the whole world. Okay. That also just helps us get more familiar with the imagery-based map. All right, to continue, in this layer ribbon, there is the all-important Add Data button. Add Data is so important, I'm going to do a separate video on how to add data. I'll just very quickly take you through an example right now. When you click on Add Data, you get the Add Data dialog. There are 3 general areas that you can add data from. Data that's already in your project. We don't have any of that. Data that lives on your computer, maybe something that you downloaded in your downloads directory. We don't really have any of that right now. And in the middle, we have data from the portal, which is your connection to ArcGIS Online. Again, you have to be logged in to use this. So just for practice, we can click on Living Atlas and ask Living Atlas to show us some cities. So in the search bar here, I type cities, and yeah, I'll just put in US major cities. That's fine. So I'll click OK. And some data shows up. It's a whole bunch of points about US cities. Actually, this is a good opportunity to show you the click for more information aspect of the Explore cursor. If I click on one of these guys, I get a pop-up. My pop-up is docked here. That tells me that that city was Minot, North Dakota, and it has its population and a little bit more information about it. Your pop-up may not be docked. Your pop-up may be just like floating out here in space somewhere. And if you click on these, it just comes up in a pop-up. If you would like your pop-up to be docked, you can drag this around until you see these little docking symbols. And don't just put the pop-up window where you want it. Actually go click on the docking symbol and it will dock it there. Okay. I'm not a big fan of the pop-up actually, because I have a bad habit of clicking on the map in order to zoom it, which is wrong. But it's how Google Maps works. And so I'm constantly clicking, and now I'm waiting for a pop-up, and it's just going to tell me that that's the world imagery base map, and I don't need it. So I am someone who will often come in here and click no pop-ups. The other option here is one that I almost never use. It's Add Graphics Layer. This is kind of how we got that point in the middle of the ocean. That was a graphics layer. I'll click it just so you can see what it does. I don't find it terribly useful. It adds an empty graphics layer, and you get a graphics menu. And if you click on the graphics menu, you could put text on here, or you could draw. Like here's a little freehand line. I could draw, a cone of where I think the hurricane is going to go. And then if my boss doesn't agree with me and thinks that the hurricane is actually going to hit Alabama, come in here and draw another little graphics. I don't find this totally useful. I think there are better ways to add graphics after your map is all created. This stuff is not data. It's just, drawing or writing in your map environment. So again, because I don't use graphics much, I will right click on it and remove it. All right, the next neighborhood here, the selection neighborhood, is so important. I'm going to do an entire video on selection. However, I do want to show you just the select cursor right now, because you'll see what I was talking about having more than one cursor. If I click on select, don't pull down the drop down, just click on select, you'll notice that my cursor changes. And instead of popping up information or being able to zoom using my cursor or pan, instead this allows me to pick one or more features in the map with the goal eventually of creating a subset. There are all kinds of reasons you might want a subset. Maybe you're only interested in, the cities in Florida. Maybe you're only interested in cities that have more than 5 million residents. There's all kinds of reasons you might want to select a subset, but this select cursor is the thing you'll use to do that. And just to look ahead, you can select by attributes, select by location. But when I've done this, I've lost my Explore cursor. Like I can't pan my map, for example. So I can always come over here and go back and get the Explore cursor. So here's the Select cursor. Here's the Explore cursor. And again, the Explore cursor looks like a finger, and the Select cursor looks like a little box. And you can just easily go back and forth between them. And now I can pan my map. But again, I look for an entire video on how to select. Okay, the next panel of information here is inquiry. We already used the locate binoculars. The measure tool is kind of fun and a little bit frustrating to use. Let me get the measure tool. Okay. It looks like a little right angle here, and its easiest use is if we wanted to know like how far is Hawaii to California. You click on one and you bring up a string here and it tells you how many kilometers it is to the end of that string. Well, that's fun. So it's about 4,300 kilometers from Hawaii to some part of California. And you can move this around and get different measurements. You can also use it to kind of judge a route. So if I click here and then I keep going, like I'm making a route, I want to know how far it is from Hawaii to my study area or something. It will add up all the segments on that route. The only problem with the measure distance tool is it's hard to get back your cursor like while you're doing it. You really have to once you've figured out the distance you're interested in, close the measure distance tool and you're back to the Explore cursor. And I didn't show you, but in there are ways to change your units. Like if you don't want kilometers, you want miles or meters, you can change your units. Infographics is a tool I have never used. And I want to try a tool that I've never used to show you how you could find out a little bit more about it. And by the way, I'm noticing when I look at the description, use Esri's Geo-Enrichment Service to view infographics. Geo-Enrichment Service should ring alarm bells in your head. This is a tool that costs. And in fact, when I hover here, let me see if I can hover again. You'll see at the bottom, this tool consumes credits. Now, you have credits, and we'll talk about credits, but you should be cautious when you don't know what you're doing because you're an absolute beginner and a tool consumes credits. All right, so that is an overview of the tools that are in the map ribbon, and I will try to do some more videos going in depth on some of these important neighborhoods later on.